All right, excellent afternoon to all those who are watching me across the states in Nigeria. 3 years ago, Nigerians were promised a new direction, a renewed hope, a promise that I want to believe was not a difficult decision, but today it seems like it was a difficult situation or a difficult decision because of how it has created a stronger challenges, for our tomorrow that we actually do not have hope in. Since then, we have seen major reforms: fuel subsidy removed, exchange rates on what's it called, unified, state governments receiving record allocations, investment announced, infrastructure projects launched, but still government points to reforms. Many Nigerians point to reality: the cost of food, the cost of transportation, the cost of survival. And so 3 years later, the question is no longer what was promised. The question is what has changed. Have reforms, translated into opportunities? Have sacrifices produced results? And are Nigerians genuinely feeling the dividends of democracy after 27 years of civilian rule that returns? Again, these are all the conversation I'll be bringing to fall today. I would love to take a balanced look, not just at the federal level, but also at the state governments, for us to actually know where the shoe pinches more. Because if more money is reaching the states than ever before, then accountability must also reach the states. So again, I welcome everyone of you who are watching me across the states. This is another Real Talk. I remain your convener, your executive producer, your producer, your script. I wear many hats on this platform, but the one that is much paramount right now is that I'm the host of this platform, my name remains Kikelomo Atanda-Owo. Let's hear what on this day initial segment has for us. When I return, I give my 2 cents on it. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. My takeaway from on this day initial segment today that took place in Kano State, to be precise, mourned the loss of 22 athletics and officials who died in a tragic, road accident while returning from the National Sports Festival. And I remember this when it happened. It was a painful reminder that today history is reminding us of that beyond just the policies, the budget, and name it, and politics as well. Government is ultimately about people, and every discussion about governance must return to one question: are lives actually getting better? And I think that's where we are at the moment when you look at the reality of things in Nigeria. So I think it's important for us to get a word from my sponsors. When I return, we dive straight to the issue at hand. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Let's get straight into it, because 3 years into the Tinubu's administration, opinions are sharply divided. Government says reforms were necessary. Supporters point to increased revenues, major infrastructure projects, and of course, economic restructuring. And critics point to inflation, hardship, and insecurity, and declining purchasing power. At the same time, state governments are receiving significantly more money than ever before. The president himself have repeatedly said that, and hold governors accountable too. And perhaps that changes the conversation today, because if states are receiving more resources, according to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as I mentioned earlier, why are citizens still struggling? To help me, or to help us examine this moment, I'm being joined by Evans Ufeli, principal partner, the Chambers of Evans Ufeli legal practitioner, is a public affairs analyst, human rights advocate. And I think before I connect with him virtually, it's important for us to play the guest profile. When I return, we'll be speaking with him directly. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. Let me use this medium to quickly usher in my guest, Barrister Evans. It's a pleasure to have you on Real Talk with Kike again today. Many thanks, many thanks. How are you doing? Let's start from there. I know there's a time difference between you and I.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you for creating time to lend your voice on issues that affect us all. But let's dive straight to the issue at hand. I would like to start with the question Nigerians are asking every day. 3 years after the renewed hope agenda began, are Nigerians genuinely feeling the benefits, of these reforms, or are they still being asked to endure the cost while waiting for the rewards? What's your take on it? Because I would love you to have a balance with the reform question at hand. Government argues that difficult reforms were unavoidable, yet fuel subsidy removal is there, exchange rate unification, fiscal restructuring. Have these reforms delivered enough measurable benefits to justify the hardship many citizens in Nigeria are experiencing today? What's your take on this?
Well, unfortunately, the reform have not yielded any positive result. If you look at the lives of Nigerians before 23 and their lives after, you will see a remarkable and a sharp difference in the way they have fared. Okay. First of all, let me say that the government took on too many reforms at the same time. And that is not the best way to handle reforms. Okay? You don't take off removal of first subsidy, unification of the currency, then you are picking up different reforms and running concurrently at the same time, experimenting with the life of 200 million plus. It's a very bad decision to take. Okay? Because even the things or the palliatives that were promised to cushion the effect of the drastic reform were never delivered. for the uh, fuel subsidy, for example. The CNG buses that the government promised was never delivered till date. Okay, the program failed, so the reform is failing as we speak. 3 years running. Okay, now the government said that it's the funds that is recouped from the subsidy removal is shared to governors. The government had not told us how much was saved, how much was distributed to governors, and what those funds were used for. Okay, the accountability and transparency that is required because it's national income. The funds under reference, belongs to the public. It's public funds. So the public ought to know. If you say you are giving governors more now because you save money, how much did you give to the governors? How much did you save? And how much did you distribute? And what was the money used for? Those salient questions, this government have not addressed it. It keeps saying that giving governors money. It gave governors money, that's true, okay? But the effect of that is that the governors started falling on top themselves and started defecting from their political party to the party of the president. That's the only result the money yielded. And then the money appears to have been mopped up for politics and for election or re-election. Okay, so you see that the subsidy removal only brought hardship. There was no corresponding palliative that have eased the life of people. Little wonder citizens are in deep poverty and cost of living have gone so high. Okay, on the day the president celebrated these 3 years, I saw what he rolled out. He talked about tax to GDP ratio and all that. He talked about our reserves. He talked about the fact that the removal subsidy is an achievement. He talked about so many things, the IMF and all that. But the president only addressed the macroeconomic level. Economics or the economy is in two forms. There's a macro that deals with GDP, that deals with the totality of the economy of the country. And there's a micro that deals with individuals, scarcity, individual decision, demand and supply, and all that. It is that micro that have not lifted its head up because of the corresponding effect of the too many reforms that the president was dragging and running at the same time. Okay, citizens should be able to access loan. They should be able to access employment. They should be able to access life. They should be able to access security and welfare. But this government had none of that. Okay, and this is not a subjective argument. Okay, I have fact and I can actually we're all in the country. This is not blind criticism. It is balanced criticism that if I'm going to score this government, I'll score this government 2/10. 2/10 in the sense that it didn't take into consideration, okay, the livelihood of the citizens. The Constitution says in Section 14.2 that is hereby accordingly declared that sovereignty belongs to the people, through which government derives its legitimacy. That the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. The government has said that, oh no, in the educational sector, sectorially, in the educational sector, it created NEL fund. Okay. And the NEL fund, you ask yourself, how many persons are able to access the NEL fund? And education is actually beyond tuition. Okay. How about the ASU? How about the universities? How about facilities? How about research? What's the budget for education, for example? And how many percent is that budget? What's the performance index of the budget on education and all that? These are questions. Today, what's the misery index in Nigeria? What's life expectancy? Corresponsively, when you look at cumulatively what the government have put together in its attempt to reform Nigeria has not worked. And this government need to accept that and change strategy because 3 years down the line, there is no apart from the uh, the coastal road, which is highly talked about coastal road, that have its own legal issues in terms of the bidding process and all that. Apart from that, and then the NEL fund, which is a fraction, which is 10% or thereabout of Nigerian students would assess, which other thing has this government done since inception for the past 3 years? Meanwhile, it has made more money, okay, but it has taken more loan, okay. What the president took in loan, a loan within in 3 years, yeah, is far, far more than what the country has taken in terms of loan for the past 40 years. Okay, you can check the records. Okay, and
I
then one would have expected that since he said he made a lot of money, he has made enough on the oil subsidy, and why should you be taking more loan? And even if you are taking loan plus the money you have made, why is the economy this way? Because the growth is at the macro level, and the growth is nothing to write home about because it's fluctuating. Inflation is still on a very
All
high
right.
rate.
Talking
Okay.
about the growth,
Uh,
many thanks, Evans. Talking about the growth, because I feel that the average Nigerian does not measure success through GDP figures or growth. They measure it through food prices, transportation, school fees, rent, name it. So the cost of living, the living reality now is what I think that we should touch on. When you look at everyday life, as governance improved that the Nigerian experience over the last 3 years, can they will say, oh, they've had a better life. And I would love you to actually, bring some comparison to that, because the president has also repeatedly argued that the states are now receiving unprecedented allocations. Some states have seen revenues increase significantly. If states are receiving more money than ever, why are citizens in many states not seeing corresponding improvements in healthcare, in education, in the infrastructures, roads, job creation? What do you have to say to this?
Many of the state governors are actually not performing. The ones performing, they are not more than four. Maybe Abia, Borno, uh, Delta, and maybe one other state. There are not more than four states that are really performing in terms of performance. Okay. And the citizens have to question their governors. That's the truth. Because I don't think the president is the problem here. The only place where we hold the president is, can we know how much you give to them? Okay. Okay. And can we then follow up on the governors, what they have done with it or what they are doing with it? That is what the citizens' corresponding obligation need to be now. Okay. Because since the president said he's giving the governors more money, none of the governors have objected it. None of them have debunked the fact that what the president's expression. And silence in that regard means admission. Therefore, we need to now move to the governors and then ask them, because in many states, I mean, you see how there's no public health care. I mean, I just mentioned Delta, but that's my state. But that the government is performing maybe on some roads. But when you look at healthcare in the local farming area, you look at healthcare even in the Delta Central where it comes from, and you look at around, healthcare is not prioritized in many states in Nigeria. It's not prioritized because the governors don't use them. And then the officials of the government don't use those hospitals. So they are not taken care of. The schools in many of the states are not prioritized. There's a school in Ebonyi State as we speak where the children sit on the floor to learn and they sit under trees to learn as we speak in the 21st century. So education is not prioritized. Healthcare is not prioritized. At the state level, then you ask yourself, what really is the function of the state government? If an item as sensitive as education, an item as sensitive as healthcare is not taken care of, then there's problem. In my local government, if a woman wants to deliver, okay, they'll ask her to go and buy a candle. You want to give birth to a child have not been to this world before. They ask her to go and buy a candle. So it is that candle that they will use, you know, to see her through delivery. And this is an oil-bearing community with huge, humongous contribution to the center. Then you ask yourself, what is the governor doing to put this? Who is putting the governor in check to do what he ought to do? Where is the money? Where did the money go to? The money that is voted heavily for the purposes of improving the life of the citizens. You can find now it's even worse because the federal government has failed in the level of security. And so every state is grappling. Oyo State is in turmoil today. Okay, Lagos State is facing insecurity challenges right now. The whole of the north is ravaged. Okay, and it's coming down south. And you still say the government have uh, uh, the moral justification to celebrate 3 years in office and marking a milestone and reeling out achievements. There are no achievements as far as I'm concerned. Both at the state level and at the federal level. Not just blaming the president, but the governors. Okay, who are supposed to be in the stopgap to manage their citizens vis-a-vis what the federal government has to put in place in terms of federal projects. The state governors are in the religion of their duties, many of them. Okay, even the ones working are also neglecting certain sensitive areas like healthcare. And if we have nothing, at least if we have healthcare at the state level, and then we have education. Because once you have healthcare, you have education, and then the people are able to access employment, whether in private sector or with government. Then you have actually really solved 50% of the problem. Okay, let the citizens now aspire individually to become whatever they want to become. You give them healthcare, you give them education. Anybody who you give healthcare, give education and welfare, you have settled the person. The other part is has to come from the person, and then you will see how society will grow. But those minimum requirements, those barest minimum amenities, state government has failed to provide it. Should we still blame the president for the state governors who are in the election of their? I don't think it's right to always blame the president. We should call out our governors. We should call out the state house of assembly and ask them what their oversight function. How are they exercising the powers they have to check the governors? Okay, the powers they have to approve revenue. What is going on? Because if parliament is the hallmark of government, you understand. So if a governor is not doing well, it's not even the governor who should go responsible. It's parliament, it's state house of assembly, because they are the ones that actually control the expenditure that the executive turns out. So as much as we are putting the blame on the governors to do the right thing, we should hold our representatives. For all of them are extraction. They are from different. We should hold them accountable for allowing the executive to go astray.
All
And
right.
when we do that, then we'll be communicating effectively.
All right, many thanks, many thanks. Accountability is key. Yeah, since Nigerians are always directing most of their frustration towards Abuja, but I guess your message is clear right now regarding holding the governors accountable. Let's go on a quick break to get a word from my sponsors. When I return, the conversation will continue. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. This is Real Talk with Kike. Many thanks for staying with me. If you are just tuning in, this is Real Talk with Kike, and I've been having conversation regarding the 3 years after the launch of the renewed Hope Agenda and 27 years into Nigerians' democratic journey. And the Nigerians are asking tough questions. Are reforms translating into real improvements in daily life, or are citizens still waiting for the promised divided dividends of democracy? Again, I've been speaking with Evans Ufeli, a legal practitioner, and of course is a public affairs analyst, human rights advocate. And in the first half, we both examined, the impact of this renewed hope agenda that I earlier mentioned, and of course the cost of reforms, whether increased government revenues are translating into better lives for ordinary Nigerians. Now I'm going to go, I will go a bit deeper, because with the conversation at hand, we must find a balance. But before I do that, I think it's important for me to open the phone lines. For those who are watching me across the states, the number showing on your screen right now is the number to call to lend your voice on issues that affect us all. And of course, I'm streaming live from Facebook, on Real Talk with Kiki, and of course on Silverbird platform. And Evans, thank you so much for all that you have shared thus far. But let me ask you this. Nigeria is now 27 years into uninterrupted democracy. So democracy at 27. What have we learned? What have we learned right now? Looking honestly at the journey, have we strengthened democratic governance, or simply, perfected, the process of just election without fully delivering democratic outcomes? What's your response to this?
We have delivered democratic outcome to a particular level, but it's so minimal. Okay, it's not it's not as expected. What I mean is we have not gone as much as we should have gone by now, because we started our democratic journey in 1999. Okay, but not until 2004 that the vehicle that should enhance democracy was created. That is the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, because of the endemic corruption in the system. It was created in 2003, 2004, okay, by the government of uh, former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Okay, now the EFCC created, you know, the ICPC and all that were supposed to curtail, the endemic corruption that strangles democracy. Because the democracy's biggest enemy is corruption. Okay. So now the EFCC in its inception did fantastically well to hold to account government, both governors, ministers, name it, the police, everyone accountable to a point. Okay. And lost its grip at some point. So um, the criminals themselves also tightened their strategy at some point. Many of them are left off the hook by technicalities on litigation and the rest. But generally, for 27 years, democracy, we have not delivered. The reason I say we have not delivered is because look at all the government, successive government, that of Obasanjo, okay, which actually cleared our debts, gave us good reserve, pushed the economy to a point, and then successive ones took over. Yaradua to, good luck with Jonathan. Before insecurity came in, okay, practically in 2009, even though there were already attacks from 2001 before insurgency came in 2009 fully. And from that time till now, you could say that we have not scored a good point in the area of security. We have not scored a good point in the area of the economy. Okay. The last time our economy did buoyantly well was when it was rebased under the Goodluck Jonathan administration. And it hit a particular, we became the fastest growing economy at that time. Okay. But today the story is not the same. It's not the same because we believe that the Nigerian system can actually run. Now we're matured enough for Nigerian system to run solely on the ideals of demand and supply. No country can run, even the United States have subsidies on certain things. But we were not even matured enough. We still had almost 80% of our people living below $1 per day, living below the poverty line. And then we went ahead to implement take up subsidy that way. Okay. Which ruined, the prospect of the people. Ruined, many people who have built businesses over time. Okay, coupled with that, the security came in. Coupled with that, we had the issue of the tax, high electricity rates, because the subsidy was removed on both electricity and in power, in fuel and all that, diesel. Okay, so when you leave an economy to run that way, such that the government isn't contributing, okay, to the people's life directly, that is why cost of living is high. Because
Okay,
the only point that the government was
Evans,
contributing to the
I'm
market.
sorry to interrupt you right now. I know the question that I will be asking you next is something I'll be discussing in the last segment of the show, where you also be lending your voice. But I want us to find a balance with our conversation with the topic at hand, because recent reports of adopted children in communities such as Asikare, Asikara, and Orire, reminds Nigerians that insecurity remains a painful reality. And I want us to stress on that insecurity or the security issues. Why do schools, vulnerable communities continue to remain soft-targeted despite years of security intervention? Because with all that you are sharing thus far, I feel that there's a balance to this topic at hand. Let's move beyond this politics. Let's look at the governance itself. What areas of governance can this administration genuinely point to as evidence of progress, and where performance clearly falling before even the expectations, with the balance of the insecurity happening in certain areas, or will I even say across Nigeria, across the states right now? Because coming into the studio and hearing that some people were even apprehended yesterday in Lekki actually gives me, I don't know how I feel right now. I think that actually just changed my mood before coming on air. What's your take on this?
Well, the balance is this. The balance is this. I'll commend this government, for the fact that it pushed for local government autonomy. Remember, this government went to court. The Attorney General went to court. President practically went to court to ensure that funds belonging to local government goes directly to them. Even though indirectly the governors are still controlling in many states. But that was a genuine move. That was commendable. It's not every time you condemn the government in its totality, and I will not do that. If I see what they have done well, I will say, okay, the coastal road they are doing, apart from the legal issues of bidding, it's not a bad idea. It has economic benefits, okay, and that is fine, okay. The unification of the currencies and all that, and like you can see that like the dollar have been, getting its root. Now you don't have enough of it, okay, and the prospect of local refining or local refinery, Dangote refinery, and the contribution of government, and most especially the distraction of government with it. Those are high points, okay. But that's not enough, because you can build all you want to build. Once you fail in the area of security, you are failed in all. Yes, because whatever it is you are putting together, you are putting it together for the living. Okay, so your where you should score the highest point is not in the creation of this thing, the creation of an enabling environment, the creation of security to ensure that the citizens are protected. Because you violate the social contract theory where you are not able to protect the citizens. The social contract theory is that when the citizens pay tax, they exchange it with the security of their lives and their property. Okay, and that is what is. If you look at Section 24 of the 1999 Constitution, it gives it ties up the social contract theory in that section by saying that when citizens pay their tax, stick to the national pledge, they are patriotic, they do all the expected of them. Government corresponsibly in chapter 2 of the Constitution, from section 13, 14, 15, and 16, then 18, have a whole list, okay, of issues that government is supposed to provide. Okay. But when citizens fail in section 24, citizens can be prosecuted. Okay. But when government fail on section 16, 18, 14, then government gets away with it. Okay. You see the imbalance. So That imbalance is what we're talking about. That the fact that the government could not take care of security, couldn't really take care of public health care, which is part of security. Okay. It couldn't take care of education in its full term. Okay, now fund is not enough. Okay. So having not taken care of that, that is why we are saying the government has failed or is failing. Okay. That is the required balance. Where we state the high point of what the government have done, we'll state the low points, and we'll bring a balance. The government has done and how it has fared. Because when you go out there and ask this ordinary citizen about how they're faring, it's negative throughout. It's negative from one point to the other. And you can't keep a society that way. That is why you see insecurity has entered Lagos. It is highly tied to poverty. People will take money to go and attack others. People can be easy breed when they are unemployed, hungry, and roaming. Okay, they can become easy tools at any point. And that is why the supply of violence is surplus. Okay, you can actually use anybody. Okay, there are a huge number of out of school children. Does this government have any program that's addressing that issue? The answer is no. Even when the UNESCO have a program to that effect, the government is not connected to that program. Even when there are external help in that area, government is not connected to it. Then they are taking loan on ending loan. Okay, they are not
So,
deploying it
Evans,
to
Evans,
district. The attempt is not being made.
Don't you think that, government not being able to take care of so many things, taking low perhaps that's the greatest challenge today that we have in the economic, especially when it comes to trust, when we are tying it to trust, because taking trust into fall or bringing it to fall right now, I think is important based on all that you have shared thus far. Do Nigerians still believe government promises, or are we just witnessing a widening gap between leadership and public confidence? That's my first question to you. And my last question to you right now, because of time, we need to move to the last segment of the show, is the fact that with less than a year to major political positioning ahead of 2027, what should Nigerians realistically expect before the next election cycle begins? What are your take on these two questions? Quickly, before we move to the last segment of the show.
Okay, my first is that as regards government promises, whether it has government promises have failed largely in Nigeria. Okay, because their promises don't go beyond basic amenities. You understand? It doesn't go beyond basic amenities, and these basic amenities they've not been able to put out there, both at the regional level and at the federal level. Okay, so the governors hugely have failed because they are in the direction of their duties. They are not able to cater for their citizens in the areas where they have competence, in the areas where they are bound to provide those amenities. Then at the center, you have the same issue. Then as to what the citizens should expect before the next election. I mean, most of the parties are concluding their primaries. Okay, so this is the build up to the 2027 elections. And what they should expect is that there's going to be an election come 2027, and so they should be ready to vote wisely because elections have consequences. If you go out to vote, there are consequences. If you refuse to go out to vote, there are consequences. Your decisions and indecisions have consequences. Okay, and these consequences will come directly at you. Okay, so let me use the opportunity to call Nigerians. So, go out there, register, for those that don't have PVC or those that just turned 18, okay, they should register to vote. And when they go out to vote, they should not sell their votes. It is their civic responsibility. It is called their allegiance. It has your allegiance. It has some spiritual undertone, such that if you exchange it with money, you are shortchanging yourself. Okay, you are laying a very wrong precedent for yourself and your generation coming. So go out there, exercise your vote, do it rightly.
Thank
Vote
you.
for the candidate of your choice. And so that is
All
what I
right.
think.
Thank you. Thank you so much for lending your voice on issues that affect us all. Hoping that, the renewed hope that we are seeking for, it will come to pass very soon. But thank you so much for bringing light to the conversation. But before we go, let me quickly just, give a recap of all that you have shared, because I know that lives getting better now is something that we all are looking forward to, because beyond the policies, the statistics and the promises, people just want to see results that they can feel at the end of the day. Governance is not measured by promises made, it's measured by progress felt. I feel that that's all that you have emphasized on thus far on the topic at hand. But let's move to the last segment of the show. This is where I have an opinion as a host. And the first trending story or take that I would like to lend my voice on is your State school head teacher calling out to Nigerians. And first off, this is one of the most heartbreaking videos that I've seen in recent times. In the video of this head teacher of the school in Oyo State, where students and tutors were abducted, it's a video of agony, a video showing the horrors of insecurity. These people have witnessed their fellow tutor beheaded. They have remained in the bush, in the rain, and sunshine, name it, in just one clothes for almost 20 days now. May God never allow us to witness such pain, whether as a parent, as children, as guardian, as a member of any family throughout our lifetime. Because to be honest, I broke down into tears several times while watching that video. At some point, it was affecting me mentally. I just feel that as journalists, sometimes people do not have an idea of how much this news that we consume every day to lend our voices on affect us. I just simply could not continue watching. I cannot imagine myself in such a situation. I don't even imagine it for my enemy. I cannot imagine my children being in such a situation either. It took every strength in me, every fiber of my being to discuss this trending story today, to lend my voice to it. It is the least I could do under these circumstances. And that's why I have decided to just treat it as a major topic. That being said, I have seen some actions, being taken by the Oyo State government. I have also seen the federal government taking steps after Nigerians called them out. After 20 days, they decided to react to it. Let us be honest, before the public outrage, their focus appeared to be on political primaries and the 2027 election. Their focus seems to be on retaining power. But because of the voices of Nigerians and the widespread condemnation, they have now begun putting our media optics and making visits to the community where the incident happened to become a reality of their own everyday life. However, I want to quickly highlight something important. Insecurity in northern Nigeria is no different from insecurity in the southern west or in the southwest. In the southeast, in the south-south, or any other part of this country, Nigeria. When mass adoption happened in places like Zamfara, Kaduna, Niger State, Borno, and many other northern communities, we did not always see the level of urgency and attention. Hundreds of children have been adopted in the north over the years. We have witnessed incidents involving dozens and even hundreds of school children at a time. Now that insecurity has become more visible in the southwest, it's affecting communities that many of the political elites directly identify with. We are now beginning to see stronger reactions. That is hypocritical. Hypocrisy at the highest level, and it needs to be called out. I need to call out people on this platform. No life is greater than another. No life is more valuable than another. Every Nigerian life should matter equally in the eyes of government, just as every life is equal before God. That being said, this is not the time for the government or security agencies to relax. It is time for them to intensify their efforts. Those children must be brought back. Not just brought back, they must go through a lot of, God, This is not a request, it's a demand. It's a demand from over 200 million Nigerians whose lives and safety are the primary responsibility of government. Sometimes I always wonder, is it another African country that is leading us? Are we all not Nigerians? I've watched several videos and observed many things that reveal the deep flaws in our system. I do not want to go back into endless argument about whether some political factors are complicit in the insecurity industry or whether some people benefit from instability and fear. Nigerians have heard those arguments repeatedly. What I want us to focus on is this: the kidnapping industry is making a mockery of our country. These criminals see our weaknesses. There's so much noise coming into my ears. Can somebody take care of that? They study our responses every time they release videos. They watch how Nigerians react. They watch how communities panic. They watch how leaders run from one emergency meeting to another. Every successful adoption gives them confidence and encouragement, or encourages them further. So we need a different strategy. These criminals no longer hide their faces. They release videos openly. Can you imagine? They display weapons and ammunition. They flaunt ransom, they parade. Sometimes they murder innocent people and broadcast it as evidence. The level of audacity should alarm every Nigerian. I struggle to think of many countries where criminal groups operate with such confidence and publicly. It is a national embarrassment to us as Nigerians. This is why I need more than condemnation. We need security experts, intelligence professionals, military strategists, community leaders, and policymakers to come together and develop a better solution. It can just be about, it cannot just be about crying on television or issuing statements or trending on social media. The last time I brought back the issue of Jonathan administration, where the first lady will be screaming, "There is God," we must begin to see measurable outcomes. We must begin to see successful rescues, safer communities, stronger intelligence gathering, a clear reduction in these crimes. Nigerians cannot continue like this. These criminals are not 200 million people. They are not the majority. They are small numbers of wicked, evil, heartless individuals who have been allowed to create fear across the nation. They must be hunted down relentlessly. They must be and Nigeria must come back every inch of this territory from those who seek to rule through fear. This is my own real talk this afternoon. Evans, what's your take on this quickly in a minute?
Well, the issue of the abducted, the teachers and the pupils is one that breaks the heart, because government didn't even respond as quickly as they should. You see, and the timing between the distress call and response to the distress call is very poor in our country, and the security architecture need to improve on that response to distress call, because these people have been making videos. They are using phone to make those videos. Those videos can be analyzed. Those videos are made inside Nigeria. We can trace them, okay, with those videos. So what is stopping this government from doing that? They said they are mobilizing forest guards. That was the news yesterday. They are mobilizing 1,000 forest guards to go and rescue. I don't understand. This is not a case of forest guard. It's a serious case, of insecurity that requires very tactical combatant operation. The infantry, that is their responsibility. I don't know why forest guards should take the place of infantry in a country. The forest guards, are they trained? They are with machete and then guns. Can they combat this? And why is it? Because the woman who have been used repeatedly to make the videos said that the government tried to use force, and therefore it infuriated the abductors, and them taking one to be killed again, apart from the one that was beheaded. Okay, And even at that, government still went ahead to release the information that they are mobilizing uh, forest guards. Okay, that will put the victims in more danger,
Unfortunately,
and I
Evans,
expect this government
we've
to
run
move
out
further.
of time. I wish you could just, give me your thoughts in a minute. But thank you so much for continually lending your voice on issues that affect us. So you were here in February, trying to also, lend your voice. I just pray that there will be all this culture of ills happening in Nigeria will come to an end, and hope for a better country. I don't know if you have jackpot now, because the last time you joined me, you were abroad. Now you are still abroad. Maybe very soon.
No,
We too.
I'm in school.
Yeah, in school. Oh,
I'm in school. I'm in school.
all right. Best of
Mm.
luck. Best of luck. Best of luck. All right.
Yeah.
This is
All
where I
right.
draw the curtains of the show. And we hope that measures and promises made will be felt, and will feel the progress. My name remains Kikelemo Atanda-Owo about it. Many thanks for watching. Till I come your way next week, remember to be kind to yourself and stay safe.